In these very fast-paced times that we live in the world sort of changing all the time, both domestically, internationally, and all the rest of it, it's very difficult to figure out what matters most for your business. You hear lots of advice from lots of gurus. Me and Joe don't put ourselves as gurus, we're just experts in our field. And tonight's show is focused and dedicated to figuring out how you know what matters most in your business. And we're going to have some good fun and games here because our resident in-house expert is going to be put on the hot seat and subjected to some interrogation and questioning to dig deeper into her brain. But without further ado, folks, why don't we just kick off with our superb, wonderful theme tune. Step forward, Dennis Norden. Not Dennis Norden, some Dennis. Anyway, listen.
Hi there, welcome to today's Business Growth Club show. We are so pleased to have you here. The theme is growth marketing.
We're talking about actions and consequences today.
It's all about purpose.
Driving business growth with using KPIs.
We're talking money mindset.
The Growth Club, I mean, not to oversell it, but it's so well organised. So yeah, it was totally invaluable.
The Growth Club, coupled alongside with the Masters that I'm doing at Strategic Leadership at the moment, both of those things happening collectively have definitely transformed, and the Growth Club did have a massive impact for our business.
What is it that attracted you to come to the Growth Club in the first place? Let me just start off with that.
Well, because it was the two of you, basically.
Now, Joe, before we get into this, you've got to tell me, who was the Dennis in Minder and the Sweeney? That's how I was thinking of.
I'm sorry. I was giggling.
Wasn't Dennis Norden? Because he's
It was Dennis
twice
Waterman.
because he's a football player. Who was it, Dennis?
Dennis Waterman.
That's it. And superb. Joe, listen, how's your week been? Because I know you're right in the middle of one of the most stressful events in people's lives, and you just cope with it on the surface magnificently. You're moving house. So what else have you been up to over the last week?
What else have I been up to? Well, sorry, I'm still recovering from giggles.
Dennis Norden, if you're out there, I know you passed away anyway, so I do apologise.
What's Dennis Waterman got to do with anything? I've no idea. Why did he sing his own theme tunes? What was all that about? Maybe that's where you were coming from.
Spitting image, that was it. He did everything.
Right, okay, so I'm going to get a grip. And so what am I doing this week? All sorts of stuff. Been working with some IT teams on innovation and customer experience, and yeah, just doing all sorts of stuff. But I am moving house, so yeah, not got dates yet, but in that sort of period where we're just about to decide what the dates are, and you know, everything's sort of gearing up. So it's quite exciting, really.
And it's apparently one of the top 5 most stressful events in people's lives, moving house, apparently.
Yeah, and I can sort of see it. But you know, it's all, you know, it'll all turn out one way or the other, won't it? So we've just got to go with the flow, really, and try not to get too stressed by it, I think.
So do you think subconsciously, I know we're going to dive deeper into the topic of for this week here, do you think subconsciously you take that on board and figure out what's important in your life and your business, and sort of take some of that own advice that we're sharing with people tonight?
Yeah, it goes back to there's some sort of quote. There's a brilliant quote. I don't know who said it, and I can't remember it verbatim. But it
wasn't Dennis Wise.
No, it wasn't Dennis. It's about having the wisdom to know what you can and cannot change, and just doing your best with what you can't change and working with what you can. And I think, you know, there's always so much change around us that's all we can do.
That's a great way of putting it. I can't remember the exact phrase. Look, folks, if you're just coming up to listen to me and Joe share some wonderful wisdom with you and sort of have a chat between ourselves, and hashtag replay in there. If you've got any thoughts, by the way, how you work out what's important for your business, we'd love to hear your own thoughts and input here. We can share that, discuss it, and debate it. But yeah, so that sounds like you've got a great. And I know, having known you, been very lucky to know you for the last year or so, Joe. Even though it's a very stressful event, I know you've got lots in your in-trade there as well. I know that you're going to deal with that with aplomb, humour, and actually sort of get it all achieved, which I think is a magnificent testimony to your DNA.
Oh, thank you. It's about, you know, we can't always choose we're choosing to move house, but we can't always choose what happens to us and when, but what we can choose is how we respond to it.
100%.
You know, it's not about being perfect, but it's about, you know, doing your best, keep going, and hang on in there and just enjoy the process a bit, because stress is one interpretation of it, isn't it? But it's actually exciting. It's change. It's a new beginning, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's what we're talking about in the show tonight. It's all about, change, the things that go on in the world around us, and working out what matters to your business and what's less important. So, because it can be hard, can't it? I mean, do we jump on the latest social media bandwagon and the latest platform, or do we really jump into another initiative that everybody seems to be doing at the moment? So how do you work out what's important and what's not, and how do you determine that for your business and get behind it?
It's a bit of a conundrum, actually, because I think there's always that idea, and I'm just thinking something that recent comes to mind in the last few months that we've all witnessed. If you think about the what I call the baubles that we get distracted by, going down rabbit holes, it's easy for anyone, I don't care how long you've been in business, to get distracted by what you think is the new thing that you jump onto as well. And I was just thinking about Clubhouse, for example. So when Clubhouse burst onto the scene, at the time, and whether it was razzmatazz, but literally every man and his dog were jumping onto Clubhouse saying this is the new craze. And we've seen it with other platforms before. If I look at it now, obviously all the other things like Facebook, Twitter have seen that, used it, leveraged it for their own ability. And because I think we've had a change of landscape, people going back to their own jobs, the world waking up here, Clubhouse in terms of popularity, it's still got a presence, has plummeted down dramatically. So it's fallen as much as it's dramatically risen.
Yeah, and there are things like, phenomena like TikTok, which TikTok's continuing to do really, really well, and it's changing how YouTube is putting itself, and what's happening on Instagram. So these changes are having influences elsewhere, but it doesn't mean to say we have to jump on the latest thing and be there and be everywhere. It's about selecting what's right for us, and if that new thing is right for us, let's go for it. But let's make an informed choice rather than just doing the knee-jerk thinking we should really be there because everybody else is. I think just because everybody else is isn't a good enough reason. If we go just because all our customers are there and it's really fertile ground for connecting with them, then absolutely, that's a really good reason to go there.
Okay, so before we drill down into actual tools and techniques. And I know in your sort of day job as such that you do a lot of this stuff anyway. So fundamentally, why should people bother in the first place? Why bother with scanning? Why not just, figure out what's going on? Do they actually? What would be your top reasons as to why people should bother? Why businesses should get into this?
So what we're talking about is horizon scanning, which is continually being alert to changes. Sometimes there can be subtle changes that indicate there's a bigger change to come. It feels like reading the tea leaves a little bit in the market or in the world outside, but really being switched on to the world around us so that we can sense change and start to prepare for change that's relevant to us. And that change could either be in the form of a threat, something that means we're going to have to, it's going to disrupt negatively how we do business, or something that's an opportunity for us to grow and do more and reach more people. So that's something we all need to be doing anyway, because if we don't do that, what happens is threats come and bite us on the bum when we're not ready for them, and then we're forced to react. And sometimes it can be too little too late, or too expensive, and you could have been better prepared and your customers take share and so on. But also to be first mover or an early mover into an opportunity. So we should all be doing that to stay relevant and to thrive in business. It's really, really important that we pick up those changes. So when you're horizon scanning, I mean, what you're looking for really, it's the classic strategists call it macro environmental analysis. But I think that's a much grander term than it actually really is. What you're looking at is what's changing socially, what's changing technologically, environmentally, and economically, and politically, and legally, and ethically as well. So you're looking at across a number of dimensions and saying what's going on in those areas and what am I going to have to prepare for my business.
Okay, so if you take that, and this is something that you gave me a bit of an eye roll earlier and started laughing when we talked about this earlier in the week. not thinking.
I'm not Dennis Waterman again.
No, just something slightly different, Dennis Waterman. So we've talked about, and we're both on the same sheet in terms of a lot of people, for example, are familiar with the idea of SWOT, but SAW is probably a better model to apply for a number of the reasons why SWOT is a limitation. A lot of people, I would imagine, have heard of, maybe not necessarily use that what I call traditional pest or pestle analysis to do that sort of scanning. My understanding is I don't think you're necessarily a big fan of that particular technique. I'm not saying it doesn't have its merit. So where would you say that pest and pestle, for example, as models fall down, and what would you suggest is a better way to approach it?
Well, pest and pestle are good, and they're a bit of so the pest, political, economic, social, technological, pestle, you add in legal and environmental. So they're just acronyms, and they are ways, they're like a checklist that you work through to do this macro environmental analysis, which really means have a look at what's changing in the world. That's what macro environmental analysis is, and they're good because they give you a prompt to look at different areas, and sometimes those areas overlap and sometimes they don't. So I don't mind it. I just think the approach is something that businesses do once a year, or when they have a strategy session, or they do their business planning or something like that.
Just get this out of the toolkit. Let's do this.
Yeah. And we do the pestle, and we do the SWOT, and then we do and they go through this really ploddy process that was outdated back in 1995. Whereas the world changes faster, and it's about being leaner and more agile and doing this continuous scanning and picking up on things in the moment, rather than waiting to your annual strategy review session that some businesses have. So I just let's get away from ploddy 1990s 2000s classical business school strategy, and let's move into the world of real entrepreneurship, agility, and have our antennae constantly twerking. No, it's not twerking.
You're thinking about something from the Caribbean there. Yeah.
Constantly, tuning in is probably a better word, into the signals that are out there for what's going on in the world.
Nicely put. I think it's still scary stuff, because I still see a lot of it being published out there as like modern day strategic thought process, and it's about trying to get into that mindset, isn't it? Because planning isn't just a one-to-gear exercise. It's an approach, it's an attitude, it's a mindset that embeds there. I find it's also something with pest and SWOT, where they fall down on, is people just literally generate lists, and they don't actually think of that relative to themselves, and there's no real what I call diving in deeply there as well.
Yeah, it's like so really there you start it. So the whole point of whether you go 1990s 2000, and actually the strategy predates some of that, some of the models predate that, is where people, you're right, use it as a list, and then they sort of move on to the next bit, and then they move on to the next bit,
that plodding thing,
without really diving in. And part of horizon scanning is also the competitor analysis piece. And again, a lot of what I see out there in practice in small business is that old traditional competitor analysis, where you go, my competitors are X, Y, and Z, and X has turnover of this and market share of that, and Y is turning over this and has market share of Z. And actually it's interesting probably at best, but what really matters is how well those competitors are serving customers, is how well they're delivering on the value proposition, and how your value proposition is different. What can you learn from those competitors? What do you need to watch out for because they're stealing a march on you? So again, with competitor analysis, which is part of horizon scanning, because essentially what it's getting you to do is to look upwards and outwards at the world out there, and not be head down, bum up, just inside your own business. You've got it forces you to look outwards, which is so important. It's just a really good thing to do. But your competitor analysis also needs to be lean and agile and in the moment. And yes, look at the company accounts of your competitors when they come out and see what you can learn. But it shouldn't be an annual thing. You should.
That's a very static exercise as well, and it's probably a lot of information is out of date, doesn't have any relevance. And I think also the idea of competition nowadays is probably far broader than it might have been when these models first came out, when Dennis Waterman was driving with John Ford in the Sweeney. In terms of, so if I look at something like the leisure sector. If you're a cinema, you're not looking at another cinema. You're looking for somebody who's competing for that leisure pound. Somebody who says, this is not a functional spend. This is something that I'm going to get some experience and enjoyment out of. So who are all those people out there? Whether it's restaurants, whether it's cafes, whether it's public houses. Now they're coming back out. Who are competing for that same £1? I don't know. £1 probably wouldn't get you a lot of these days.
Yeah, and also people have got the choice to do nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, it's really about, getting to understand where you fit in with all of that in terms of serving your customer and what's going on for your customer and what's likely to be going on for your customer going forward, and also how your supply chain is placed in all of that change in order to enable you to serve your customer with what your customer's going to need. So it's looking at it all the way through that piece. But also thinking about how you talk to your customer in terms of what platforms, what mechanics, what messages, and where you need to change. So it is really very it's a fascinating thing to be doing, and it's really very it can be really enjoyable and exciting to be involved in all of that change, I think. So it's about, again, we can let it overwhelm us, we can let it stress us because it's always happening and there's so much out there. But I think if we put a filter on, or maybe better some glasses that really help us to see sharply the things that matter and the things that don't, because there is a lot of noise out there, and it's for every business owner to be able to discern what elements of the noise actually matter.
Well, I suppose that comes back to actually knowing what your own purpose is and what your own, so you've got to have some idea, you've got to have some clarity in your own mind about the nature of what you offer, the nature of your business. I think if you go there saying, I don't quite know what I want to do and how I'm going to do that, then your noise is going to sort of really drown you a lot. And I think we mentioned competition a lot, and I don't know what your thoughts on competition I'm going to ask you, but I think, well, first of all, there's competitors all over. Collaboration is great, but you are competing. Whoever you are competing with somebody else. Even a public sector body, even a local authority competes with somebody else there as well. So this idea of a monopolistic supplier, unless you want to live into the old style Soviet Union, doesn't exist anymore. So that's the competition. I think competition is a good thing because you can learn a lot. You can actually sort of see what you can do better, what they do better as well. But you've actually got to embrace the idea of competition. And, you can't say, well, I'm so unique. Nobody else is doing what I'm doing. Therefore, I have no competition. I find that quite an arrogant statement, I have to say, when I've heard businesses talk in those terms.
I mean, when I hear people say, I have no competition, I think, wow, you're onto a winner with this really compelling proposition. Or, well, that's because, there isn't a demand for it. So it's usually one or the other. There's very rarely any space, any real space or activity in between. And I think with competition, the thing to avoid is comparisonitis. It's not about being a Me Too business. It's about you being your own business and finding your way and your voice.
100%.
And it's a bit rubbish to be a poor copy of what somebody else is doing. But you can still. It's about what you can learn and how you can improve. What you're doing as well. So it's really essential that we can discern which bits to follow through on and which bits we're going to leave in there just as part of the noise. And one really key ingredient to doing that is to have trusted people around you who are experts and good at what they do, but also to trust yourself. And
interesting. So due diligence perhaps on the people that you're working with and due diligence on yourself?
Yeah, I think what I do see is sometimes business owners who are looking for so much outside validation of what they want to do, And actually, we know deep down what's right for our business, and it's about having the confidence to trust our own judgment sometimes. So it's great to get an external perspective and bounce things around, but make sure you choose the right people to do that with. I find that in fact, I've had a few conversations over the last week with people that are saying, well, I was thinking of doing this, but then the agency came and they suggested I do this, and but they know best, don't they? And sometimes what people will do, and often it's subconsciously, it's not always intentional, is they'll give you advice or they'll make recommendations that accommodate their own comfort zone rather than are designed to take you to where you want to go. It fits in with their framework of how they like to work and the space they like to work. And if what you're doing is unfamiliar to them, rather than say, actually, that's unfamiliar, we'll either learn or it's not for us, they try and take you down the route that is comfortable for them.
It's being led by a product-based organisation where they're saying, this is the solution, we're now going to try and make your business fit with our solution, as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And I think if we trust our intuition and our judgment, and we ask the right people who have no particular axe to grind or area of interest that they're trying to take us down for themselves, if it's genuinely their best view, then let's seek that. But at the end of the day, it's our decision, and we need to rely on ourselves.
I think you need to have that framework of understanding. For me, that are just reinforcing the points that we said on a number of occasions. It's about clarity, it's about focus, it's about having some certainty about what your business is, who you're serving, where your endpoint's going to be. So you work with a number of experts outside. How do you go about sort of sussing out who's bullshitting and who's actually can deliver and who doesn't?
It's really straightforward. I ask them, I'm really clear on my vision, and they can either help me deliver on my vision or not. And they either have ideas that are that land as being with me as being better than my ideas, or they don't. So, but I don't accommodate. I don't distort my own vision in order to accommodate somebody else's comfort zone.
Have you ever modified your vision in light of
I
what somebody
have,
else?
of course, I have. Yeah, of course I have. And also at the time, when my intuition's screaming at me that I know better and that this isn't the right thing to do, and I've still gone with it because I've paid in inverted commas for that area of expertise.
Yeah.
And if I don't follow that advice, then what's the point of paying for that advice? Because I'm trying to learn something different, something new. But it's been sort of really vibrant inside, that was, I knew I was doing the wrong thing when I was doing it, and I still did it. So I wouldn't do it again. And it fortifies you for, and I think it's about being really assertive about what you want. It doesn't mean that you have to be horrible or difficult to deal with or any of those things. It's just about being really clear and really assertive.
It's quite a paradox. It's quite a paradox, isn't it? Because lots of business owners, I find that when they go and run their own businesses, one of the reasons they're why is because they want more control over their lives. They want to have more input in their own decision making, and when they get that opportunity, they'll defer back to saying, the expert knows best. And don't get me wrong, experts are experts because they're expert. You're paying a professional to do something that you haven't got the skill set for, haven't got the time to develop. It's a good use of your time. So I'm not dissing experts at all, but I think sometimes when you get that big contradiction where the supposed person from the outside says this is what you should do, without necessarily sort of it being a complete contradiction to what you're thinking, it's having that confidence to say no.
I don't trust anybody who says this is what you should do, this is what you need to do. I think and is insistent on that, and I've sort of helped businesses pick up the pieces when they've spoken to people who have said this is what you need to do, or you shouldn't do that. And I think if it's financial or legal advice, absolutely should need, that sort of language should come into it. But when it's sort of advice on targeting a particular customer or growing your business in a certain way, unless it's to do with finance, the law, compliance, those sorts of things where it is pretty clear what you should and shouldn't do. Or even if it is unclear, then the experts do know.
Yeah.
Then that's a judgment call. And this, I don't know. I know best coaching, consulting that I see a lot. The people are. It's what we're there to do. With as coaches, as consultants, is it's fine to express a point of view, but we're there to help people run their own businesses and give them a perspective that enables them to make a decision and make the best decision that they can. And that doesn't mean saying that they're wrong or telling them what to do or not to do. And that goes down into the ownership of that goes into the business owner as well. The business owner needs to be confident, assertive, seeking out the right advice, weighing it all up, listening to the right people. There's something called the Disney technique. Have you come across the Disney technique, Mahmood?
No, right. Just pause that thought for 5 seconds, Jo, because I'm just going to do a bit of light on here.
Oh, okay.
No, that's it. It might be
Some light adjustment.
Yeah, light adjustment because my skilled ability as a camera crew member. No, that's fine. Carry on.
Okay.
What's this Disney technique, Jo?
So the Disney technique. So Robert Dilts, who was one of the founding practitioners of neuro-linguistic programming, worked with Disney alongside Disney for a while. And Disney apparently was quite difficult to read. You didn't know how he was going to be. So you would go in one day and he would be like, "Oh, let's imagine, pink fairy tale castles and mice dressed in clothes talking to us," and and then some days he'd be quite realistic and businesslike and pragmatic. Other days he'd be finding fault with everything, and other days he'd be quite rounded and balanced. So what came out of that was actually different. They're different modes of thinking, different ways of thinking. And so Disney would be sometimes a dreamer, fairy tale castles, a realist. How do we turn that into a theme park that makes money? A critic to work out, to really challenge what would work and what wouldn't. And then the wise observer who would take the best of the dreamer, the realist and the critic and put it all together. And I think we've got to do a bit of Disney in business. We've got to do a bit of Disney thinking, which is have the big dreams, work out what we can make a reality from those big dreams, challenge ourselves with the critic, the devil's advocate, finding where the risks are and what we're going to do about those, but then step back, and the business owner, the entrepreneur, the shareholders need to be the wise observer and look at that in the round and make their decision.
And if they don't, if they say, what's the consequence for a business that wants to ignore the advice that we're giving?
Well, that's okay, because it's your business, and what happens to your business is down to you, and it is literally your business. But it's not about ignoring. So there's a difference between having a business coach or a business mentor. And sorry, I've got some glare as well, but there's not a lot I can do about it.
It has a certain Star Trek quality to it all.
Funny lighting. So having a business coach or a business mentor, and they tell you to do this and you go away and do it, because they know best. What I'm advocating is that you have a business coach or a business mentor who is part of your dreamer, realist and critic portfolio of people, and that you step back and you hear all the views, and that you as the business owner are the wise observer. And you're the one making the decision, but you take it into account, but you make the decision. You're not told what to do by somebody who apparently knows best. And I would do air quotes, but that's really irritating, so I won't.
Yeah, but it's right. It's gathering the input, looking at it, taking a step back and saying yes, no. But ultimately, as a business owner, business leader in your own business, you're there, you're paid to make those decisions.
Yeah.
You're paid to take some responsibility. And you're paid to actually say, this is how I want it. The only thing I would caution against that is definitely, as a generalisation, I would not normally advise men to choose their own clothes, defer to their wife's choice.
I'm not saying anything.
No, but I'm just saying, but apart from that, literally trust your own judgment, except guys when it comes to choosing your own wardrobes.
Well, you can say that, but I can't. Yeah. So there we go. And I think there are many stylish gentlemen out there as well. So, and I'm not particularly stylish, to be fair. I'm more of a pragmatist.
I wasn't questioning your wardrobe choice.
So yeah, just trust you. So with all this that's going on, trust yourself. Listen to yourself. Hear your intuition. Seek great advice, but at the end of the day, it's your call. And there are some things that you do need to watch out for, that you will have to do something about, whether you like it or not. So whenever the rules change, whenever there's something new to comply with, there's a new regulation, a new piece of law, of course you're going to need to get that into your business and get ready to be compliant with those things. And I think we're seeing more and more of that now. We're going to see more of that emerge with decarbonisation, net zero, climate change, and business and the way we operate there. But whenever something big changes, there's always quite a lot of noise about it, and there's always quite good access to information. If you think back to GDPR, for instance, that's an example of that. So, yeah, lots to think about.
Yeah, but business, you've got to remember, haven't they? That is a great point you make there. It's about that ripple effect. If I think about going back, and I was old enough to see it, I'm going to say space now. So we think about all the stuff that was in space, and we think about all the inventions that came from space in terms of transistors, Teflon, and all the rest of it. Things ripple down, things cascade down, and so it's dangerous to think these only affect big global conglomerates here.
Yeah,
ultimately they will catch all of us businesses in that net there as well. So being aware, having a good system to have a bit of a radar there, everything that happens in life ripples down and comes down to affect even the smallest micro business.
Absolutely, and look at the ownership structures behind some of the businesses and behind some businesses that appear to be local. I bank with Yorkshire Bank. It was Yorkshire Clydesdale Bank, and now it's owned by Virgin, which I think were owned by Royal Bank of Australia for a while, and now it's owned by Virgin Money. So, sometimes what it says on the shop, I know some really brilliant. There's a really brilliant water company. Fantastic. I mean, water out of your tap, and they're owned by a huge Chinese group. And, so we are truly global in all sorts of different ways. So what's going on in the world definitely does affect, and it flows through locally. And in that is great opportunity,
Yeah, that's great. Leave some odds. You're absolutely right. So all this that we've been talking about, folks, it's not to scare you, but it's to make you aware. And remember, me and Joe, we're always about opportunity, being aware of what's going on out there. And yes, you can always choose to ignore our advice. I can't think why you would do that. But if you do choose to ignore it, that's great. It's your businesses, it's your direction, it's your driving and all the rest of it. But, we want you all to have good, prosperous opportunities and businesses.
Yeah, so we do want that, and have confidence in your own thinking. Seek great advice, and then have confidence in that as well. And I think with everything that's going on, and you think it's hard to keep up with all the change and everything that's happening. If you are struggling with that, then the one question to ask yourself is, how is this affecting my customer, and how will this affect my customer going forward? What will it mean for them, and what will I need to change? And then do it that way, and then work out, so what do I need to do with my own products and services and my supply chain in order to get ready for that change? Because that's really the question that matters, is what's this going to mean for my customers, and be ready for that. And there's all sorts of things out, and when you ask that question, it will help crystallize a lot of that noise for you, and you can see what's important and what isn't far more clearly.
Yeah, just the noise. Joe, listen, that's been brilliant. So what's next in terms of Housemove? When are you hoping to make that next big step?
I think it's going to be end of May, first week in June. Dates be decided.
Well, listen, folks, I hope you enjoyed what we've been talking about tonight. We'd love to hear your thoughts about how you focus and filter out what's important for you. Chop it into the comments box. By all means, visit www.Mahmood and Joe. Join our mailing list. Got some good stuff there as well. we all wish Jo well in terms of the next few weeks in terms of her house move. She's not disappearing, by the way. I'm just pointing out to you, she's doing an incredible amount of stuff here. She's still turning up with us, which is brilliant. So Jo, you have a fantastic week.
Thank you. Same to you. Yeah.
And what's your last parting comment, your one takeaway for everybody from tonight's show?
Really listen to yourself. Don't get super busy or super overwhelmed by all the information or drowned out by other voices. Just stop, be still, listen to yourself, and you'll know what's right.
I like that. I would add to that is that when you want to try and cut out the noise and you want to sort of save yourself going down side alleys, always remember what your purpose is and focus. Just have a framework of what your business is about. And when you see something, does it fit? If it doesn't fit and it's not really the direction you want to go to, just bin it completely. Be a bit more emotionally disciplined here and try not to get distracted too quickly. He says, holding his hand up on that occasion.
Yeah, great. I've really enjoyed tonight's show. Thank you, Mahmood. We'll be back. We'll be back very soon. So see you all then. Bye for now.
I'll have some tougher questions for you next week. Don't worry. Take care, folks.
Bye.
Hi there, welcome to today's Business Growth Club show. We are so pleased to have you here. The theme is growth marketing.
We're talking about actions and consequences today.
It's all about purpose.
Driving business growth with using KPIs.
We're talking money mindset.
The Growth Club, I mean, not to oversell it, but it's so well organised. So yeah, it was totally invaluable.
The Growth Club, coupled alongside with the Masters that I'm doing at Strategic Leadership at the moment, both of those things happening collectively have definitely transformed, and the Growth Club did have a massive impact for our business.
What is it that attracted you to come to the Growth Club in the first place? Let me just start off with that.
Well, because it was the two of you.